Hello, I'm Justine Willis-Toms. Welcome to the New Dimensions Cafe. Today I'm hosting Philip Goldberg, who for more than 50 years has been studying the world's spiritual wisdom as a practitioner, teacher, and author. His current book is Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. I'm speaking with Philip at his home by remote connection. Welcome, Philip, to the New Dimensions Cafe.
Thank you, Justine. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you once more. And I'd love to ask you, is karma real? And if so, why do such bad actors seem to get away with their bad acts without seemingly having bad consequences? And then good people who live virtuous lives suffer at the hands of others that don't enjoy the fruits of their moral and ethical endeavors.
Okay, we're starting off with the easy questions.
Oh, yeah, right. He says
These
with a
are
smile. Yeah.
that business of why good people suffer and bad people don't seem to in the same way has perplexed philosophers, theologians, and just everyday people since the dawn of time. And people have created complex theologies around it and argued over it. The East's solution from the traditions that were born in India and spread out has been the understanding of karma. Karma, the word itself, means action. Karma, as we've come to understand it, means that every action has consequences, and those consequences return in some form to the actor. Is it real? I spend a good deal of time in karmic relief, as I did in my life before I wrote the book, pondering whether it's real, because I wanted it to be real. I want the universe to be fair and equitable place. And intuitively, it feels like it might be. We can't prove it. We can turn to science and history and psychology and say, there's reason to believe it may be the case. But everyday life, as you said, seems to somehow give us exceptions, and where we can't see what the consequences of somebody's behavior is because they haven't been punished, or this person who lived a virtuous life is suffering terribly. So it takes a certain intuitive sense of rightness or a leap of faith to say unequivocally, yes, karma is real. Karma, we know, is real on a certain level. If you run through a red light and a bad thing happens, it's obvious you did something wrong and there's consequence. You're nice to someone, they're nice back to you, there's consequences. But life gets more complicated than that, as you suggest. So can we prove it? No. Will we ever prove it? Maybe. But the laws of physics that teach us that everything is connected, that is pointing in the direction that karma might be real. I've written a book about it, and I don't want, my job isn't to convince people it's real because you can't prove it. But I was a skeptic at first when I first heard about karma more than 50 years ago. I evolved into it being a kind of feeling that it might be real. And in the end, I'm willing to make that leap. And one of the reasons is I think I live a better life if I assume it's real than if I assume it's not. I'll be more responsible. I'll be more accepting, and I'll be more likely to do the right thing. And my feeling is if people are on the fence about it, if they lean toward, well, what if it is true? Then they're more likely to make those decisions when it comes to, gee, I wonder if I can get away with this. Well, no, if karma's real, I probably won't. So I'll do the right thing. I'll do the compassionate thing.
We can really spend a lot of time analyzing why something happened. Is that a useful question?
The question, is this my karma? Which we usually ask when bad things happen. But all the good things that happen to us, that's also our karma. So if we accept that karma is real, then the answer to the question, is this my karma, is always yes, because everything is. Everything that happens is the result of some constellation of our thoughts and actions from the past. And what we do now is creating karma that will come back to us in the future. So that broad question is yes. The question you're asking is, does it pay to try to analyze exactly what in the past led to this? And that's where it becomes an exercise in futility, because it's unknowable. There's a passage in the Bhagavad Gita that says the the path of karma, path of action, is unfathomable. We humans can't fathom the complexity of the cosmos, even just the complexity of all the things we've ever done and thought. And if you accept past lives, then it's multiples of that. And our karma interacts with the karma of the people closest to us, and it interacts with our family's karma and the nation we live in and the community we live in and the profession we are in and all this stuff. It's too complex to go back and find a single moment in time that caused this moment in time. It's too much of a system of energy, of interacting waves of thoughts and actions that are set in motion. And if you spend too much time doing that, then you're not taking full advantage of what an understanding of karma can provide to us. Because if something happens and we say, why is this happening? What is the mystery here? Just to accept the mystery of it and to accept that some combination of things in the past led to this, and then to say, what can I learn from this? And what lesson can I take that changes things in the future? That's useful. That's a consequence that, or an exercise that can pay off. Now, there's some exceptions, of course, because if somebody does something, scolds you or betrays you, and you say, okay, what in this relationship did I do in the past, or what do I do in relationships that have caused these patterns? That's a useful psychological exercise. But to try to trace it to a certain event or a certain moment, it's usually not um, possible to
Yes.
think of it. And so accepting it, surrendering to the reality of it, and then asking ourselves, how can I create better karma in the future?
Right. I know that you speak about how even our thoughts have
Mm,
karma, they have energy. There's a story you tell in the book, Karmic Relief. It's about two monks, an older monk and a younger monk, are walking
mm,
and they come to a river and there's a woman there.
mm.
And these are celibate monks and renunciate monks.
Yeah. So a part of their vows is you don't touch a woman. And they come to this stream, and the woman has to get to the other side. There's some, good reason for it, but it's too deep, too swift. So one of the senior monk picks her up and carries her across to the other bank, and she's grateful and she moves on. And the monks move on, and finally the younger monk just can't keep it to himself anymore, and he says, "Sir." We're not to touch a woman. You just carried this woman in your arms. And he said, yes, but I left her on the shore. You're still carrying her. But in this so he's carrying the karma of those thoughts. But the other lesson in this is sometimes your the right thing to do contradicts another a dictum in your life or another guidepost, and you have to make a choice. And the higher virtue in this case was to help another human being, as opposed to just maintaining the letter of the law in his tradition.
Beautifully said. Does karma have a bank account that we can draw on, that we can build up?
Metaphorically, you could say
Really,
that.
that's good news.
One of the ways of understanding karma that I heard from more than one teacher is it's like you do something, let's say you do something wrong, you just, something that's not completely ethical. That's like taking out a debt. You take out a loan. So now you have uh, a time period before the loan comes due. So you do some action, it's going to come back to you. What do you do in the meantime? In the case of the loan, one of the smart thing to do is, hey, I took out this loan. It's going to come due with interest. If you don't think about it, if you don't change your ways at all, when that loan comes due, you're going to be in trouble. But if you say, okay, I'm going to have to earn money, so when the loan comes due, it won't be as big of a pain. I'll be able to absorb it and do the right thing and pay off my debt. Same with karma. Did something wrong, that's going to come back. That's, in a sense, a bank account. It's a negative, it's a liability now an asset, not an asset. But if you go about life creating good karma through good action, through compassionate behavior and kindness and all the good things we do, then the effect of some of the wrong things we did are being ameliorated. You're creating enough good karma so that when the results of a negative action come back to you, it won't be as big a hit. It won't hit you as hard. You'll be able to absorb it with grace, and maybe it won't be as severe as it might have been.
I've heard that in most all religions, all traditions, going way back all over the world, there is some form of the golden rule.
Yeah, I mean it's a kind of bottom line, systems of ethics and morality can get very complex and convoluted. And I go into, some of the more important ones in the book because they're useful guideposts. But sometimes it's a bottom line thing. Be good. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. If you find something hateful to yourself, don't do it to somebody else. That covers a lot of do's and don'ts. And but if life were that simple, we wouldn't have had thousands of years of wars and combat and everything else. If teaching people that was enough, it's certainly not enough. And ethical codes of behavior are important. They're vital, but they're not enough because if somebody is greedy, if somebody is hateful, if somebody harbors resentment in their hearts, if somebody thinks they can get away with things, if somebody is materialistic, uh, et cetera, et cetera. All the ethical principles, the jails are filled with people who were raised in churches and synagogues and by good parents who taught them ethical behavior. But human beings are a lot more complicated than that. And that's why I think it's not just a question of ethical guideposts to creating good karma, it's also transformation from the inside. So I have a lot of material in the book about the variety of spiritual practices that cultivate within us the kind of mind and consciousness and heart that would lead more naturally to good behavior and to good karmic uh, actions and good karmic thoughts. I mean, if we're carrying anger and resentment around, just those thoughts in themselves create negative karma. But changing that is not necessarily easy, even if the person's motivated to change it. But that's where spiritual practices, especially the meditative practices that came to us from the East, they're transformative. So you're less likely to have those thoughts. You're less likely to try to take advantage of people. You'll be more content inside. And if you're more content, you're more likely to behave well.
One of those practices, and you have many of them in your book, but one of them is Tonglen.
Mm.
And I mention that because so many of us are saying, oh, we're in despair and we're saying, what can I do? It's not working out, maybe politically or in my community, something's going on. And if you can't do anything else, that practice of breathing in the bad, which seems counterintuitive. Can you describe that practice for us?
It's a Buddhist practice. It's very similar. It's usually discussed, and I discuss it in the same context as metta practice, which is more familiar to people. But it's a way of cultivating compassion, and it's essentially. I don't want to go into all the details of the instruction, but you imagine yourself taking in the negativity from somebody else, the pain, the anguish, the hate, the etc. Taking it in by perhaps imagining it as a dark cloud coming out of them and bringing it into you, into your heart, where you transform it into a loving, compassionate energy, and then send it back to the person. It's a way of cultivating compassion in yourself, but we also like to think it has an effect on the other person. Because even if you just look at that person in the eye and smile as a result of having done that, you're having an effect on that person. I was talking to some people about the state of the world now and helplessness and what we can do. And, people are talking about social activism and this and that. And one person said, well, I don't have time for that. I'm not inclined to that. But what I've been doing is being as kind as possible to everybody I come across in the course of my life, at the checkout line, at the gas station, at the, wherever I go in life. And I thought, yeah, that's a very good thing to do. And I go to my small town hardware store, my small town supermarket, and people have name badges. And I realized I can call them by their name. I could say, thanks, Bob. Have a good day, Sarah, because I see their, and that alone, I realize, is a kindness. You're acknowledging them in a different way than just a perfunctory thanks. And little things like that really do matter, and they do create good karma.
That's a wonderful suggestion. And I'm always looking for the name tag and hoping that it shows
Yeah,
up big enough for me to see it so I can do the same.
right.
Philip, just thank you so much for being part of the New Dimensions Cafe today.
My pleasure, Justine. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure and honor as well. I've been speaking with Philip Goldberg, who has for more than 50 years, been studying the world's spiritual wisdom as a practitioner, teacher, and author, and his current book is Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. To learn more about his work, you can go to his website, philipgoldberg.com. He spells his name Philip with one L, philipgoldberg.com. Or you can get there through the New Dimensions website, newdimensions.org, where you'll find over 2,000 programs in our archive. I'm Justine Willis Toms. I want to thank you for joining us at the New Dimensions Cafe, and I invite you, please do join us again.